Eagle has landed.
Go at throttle up.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Nerd Ledger. We are your hosts. I'm Kaje. That's Chair. We're back.
Yeah.
We're talking about nerd stuff, like always. Nerd movies, nerd news, nerd TV shows, nerd whatever, games, comics, everything.
Anything nerd?
Anything you could imagine.
Anything at all, bro. Alright. Science fiction, fantasy fiction, regular fiction, fiction. Alright? We got it here. What's
All
fiction, you ask? It's similar. It's a similarity. That's what fiction is. It's fiction of a fiction.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, there you go. Yep, is right. Here we are on this beautiful Wednesday, in the 8th month of the year, the 23rd day of 2023.
Yeah, we are here. We are here on that date at that time.
What do you think we're going to be talking about at this exact? So we're pretty consistent about this Wednesday. So okay, I'm asking you right now. What do you think next year on this exact date? Because if nuclear apocalypse isn't happening yet, and we can still podcast together, what do you think we'll be talking about?
I mean, it depends on a lot of different factors, right? So obviously it's very difficult to come up with something, but that's not fun. You know, it's not fun to be like, oh, this is hard because anything can happen. Yeah. We'll probably still be talking about how the sequels had potential but were disappointing. We'll probably still be talking about how everything has gotten postponed, and that's the reason why at this time next year, we're just at that point reviewing something that should have come out this year. We'll probably be still talking about how the Book of Boba Fett was disappointing in season 2.5 of The Mandalorian. We may be talking more about Dungeons and Dragons and the presence of ogre penises. That's a new topic that's popped up here. But when we find something, we run with it. We beat that horse.
30 seconds,
over and
30
over.
seconds an episode, 20 seconds an episode. It's all content, baby, and you're all here to listen. We sneak it in there. So
but
anyway, what's going on in Newsland? Blue Beetle came out, which you and I saw, but I know the news has been really mixed on it. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 a lot. I can talk about that probably for a few minutes here. There's other news too. I'm sure there's plenty of news with the writer strike. Here's the thing: is there any news out there on how the negotiations are going? On whether or not they're getting close to anything resembling a deal?
The only news I saw was that negotiations had started. Nothing beyond that. So no, we have no idea what's going on. But yes, we did see Blue Beetle. And yes, there's been a lot of press around it because of the disappointing opening weekend at the box office. It didn't, it's like one of DC's worst. Even Wonder Woman 84 was the only one worse, which came out during COVID and went straight to HBO Max. And everybody's making a big deal out of the box office and all this stuff. And the really funny thing is, we talked about this before too with Elemental when that movie first came out. And everybody's saying it's one of Pixar's worst opening weekends. It came out around either the exact time or a week or so after Into the Spider-Verse came out, or Across the Spider-Verse, right? It came out almost within a couple weeks of that movie. It came out after for sure. And it just passed it at the box office a couple weeks ago.
Good.
Elemental passed Across the Spider-Verse at the box office. When all the reporting was that, Pixar is going downhill and nobody wants to see their movies, and, it had such an awful opening weekend, the worst of all time for Pixar, and it just passed at the international box office Across the Spider-Verse.
I could see that slow build up of people, kids seeing it during their last summer break or anything like that, just weekly, daily. I can imagine that building up, and a lot of people don't like cartoons and stuff. This Cross Spider-Verse is extra cartoony, to a point where I know some people I don't know, to be honest with you, I met this lady a few days ago. She said like she like left, like she was seeing the movie with her kids, and they all hated it because of the animation. Apparently, it was like making her kids like have a headache, and they all left like 40 minutes in.
Hmm.
So
Well,
that's
I
like
mean,
pretty
people are
wild.
very
That's a
sensitive
very
to things these
yeah,
days.
that's a very interesting perspective. Like sort of like cartoon. I didn't realize like how much of a turn off cartoons can be for some people. Like they just can't get over the fact that it's animation.
Well, that's how I felt about the Spider Verse movies with the trailers. I think the trailers are fucking awful. I think the
Mm-hmm.
animation style in the trailers makes it look really bad, and then when I see the movies, it looks really good. So like, but when like I remember when Into the Spider Verse's trailer first came out, I was like, it might be good, but I hate the animation style. I detest it. It looks awful.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came out, and I was like, oh, it didn't bother me at all when I was watching the movie. And then the same thing happened with Across the Spider Verse. That trailer, I was like, that doesn't look good, but I know it will be when I see it. So yeah, it can be off putting as well. And when it comes to box office, it's like it's a constant like thing that people struggle with to understand that box office isn't really indicative of anything other than you know what the studio might do beyond that movie. It doesn't like high box office doesn't mean great movie or best of all time. Like there's very little correlation between how much money something makes and how good it is when it comes to film.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different factors and variables that go into why people go see a movie, and so I don't look at that at all. But yeah, it can be disappointing when you read that Blue Beetles had this awful opening weekend. Uh, all these headlines across all this social media, and then you click on the comments section of every one of those articles, and every single person, I kid you not, I didn't see one person in those comments say they didn't like the movie. Every single one said they were pleasantly surprised. They thoroughly enjoyed it. Like it was a really good movie. It was heartwarming. One person did say there's too much family, but but other than that, like it was all just very like everybody seems to really love the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen also the misleading headlines. Blue Beetle's box office isn't a good start for James Gunn's DCU. It's not even part of it. Like, yes, the character will be a part of his universe, and he said that, but he had almost nothing to do with this movie. He even said like there was almost nothing, like no notes he gave to redo anything, like nothing. So this is entirely a product of the pre James Gunn era at DC, which neither you or I are huge fans of that pre James Gunn era, uh, but both of us really like this movie.
Yeah.
And moving forward, like this is the thing is like when there's something you don't like, right? Like a lot of people will attack it, but like they'll attack it in the wrong way. Like they'll just make things up because they don't like it instead of just saying, "Well, I just don't like it for because of this," right? So like as if we were well known, DCEU haters, we that's what we would do. We would level things like, "Oh, this movie was only good because of James Gunn." Well, like that's just factually not true, right? Like
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with it. But like that's the kind of shit people say when they have these extreme opinions, right? It's just like the same thing with like people who didn't like Barack Obama. Like they just didn't like that we had a black president or whatever. Like, oh, but he
Yeah.
doesn't have a birth certificate, bro. Just like tell me the policies you don't like. Don't come up with
Or
bullshit.
also, like, how many times have you seen your own fucking birth certificate? That's what I tell
Bro, I mean
people.
that's the thing is like you don't have to lie about something that you don't like. Just tell me the valid reasons you don't like them. We can all criticize presidents for terrible policy decisions. Just say that. Don't make bullshit up. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I get
Anyway,
it. I get it.
Anyway.
And that's kind of how people are with these things. Is like
Well, that's
if
how people are on the internet. That's something we've done over before. Like, freaking Star Wars fans being the worst. Like, they're just looking for things to hate about. It's weird because they love it so much to hate it. And that's like the weird thing. Like, they don't want it to change at all. Like, and just like that with like Pokemon. Like, but everyone's saying like Pokemon, like Sun and Moon was like the worst. But I really liked Ultra Sun because it was like such a big. It was like a challenge. It was a really hard Pokemon game. And I think they made it that way intentionally. Probably because they knew the 3DS would like Pokemon Ultra Sun would be like the last handheld Pokemon game, like for its origin. So it was like a big callback to all the other games.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where a lot of people's heads. They were expecting like a really basic like Pokemon game, and instead it was really hardcore. And there's a lot of like it's people like wanting to hate on things for no good reason. Like Blue Beetle, like we said, you and I enjoyed it. And yeah, sure, there was a little bit too much family, and I think also like there were a lot of really weird parts of that story and stuff like that. And and like Elemental, I'm sure Elemental had good parts of it, and obviously people kept seeing it, and seeing it. I mean, probably was good enough to take the kids to see, but usually how that works with Pixar movies is that you're like, oh, I want to do something to wear my kids out. I'm going to take them down to the mall, let them run around in the mall for like an hour, and then we'll get them in the movie theater, and then just take them home. And then because like being in a movie is like really exciting for kids because it's going wild
Yeah.
and
And
loud and
there's definitely
all
like
that stuff.
when we talk about Ahsoka next week, we're not going to talk about
Yeah.
today. Sorry, guys. It came out. The first 2 episodes premiered early yesterday, and it's going to be on a Tuesday cycle from now on as well, apparently,
Yep.
for that show, which is cool. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about probably the first 3 episodes next week.
It's
If
good to
not, just
start
the
later
first two.
anyway, because then we can see everyone's reaction to it.
Yeah. But because of it, I watched really late last night. I was so tired. I was like falling asleep. But I still
And I,
retained a lot of it. But
and I have a really bad case of Baldur's Gate 3 right now. So it's I haven't been doing my due diligence, and also I'm getting my birthday's in 2 days, so like usually on my birthday week I just kind of I just turn into a total lazy piece of shit. I don't know how else to describe that, dude.
you treat
Just sitting
yourself.
around. Yeah, I've just been chilling this week. I'm gonna go to McDonald's after. I had McDonald's last night.
Bro,
you know,
I haven't brought it up for a while, but I have been over a year with no McDonald's.
good for you. How many? I'm gonna go get my.
Unless you count going there to get my wife a Diet Coke where I got a sweet tea. But I didn't eat their food, so I don't really count it.
No, if you didn't have any food, it's fine. Technically speaking, if we're being technical assholes, you did get McDonald's,
Okay,
and
but
you consumed.
that was like 2 weeks ago, so I still
Yeah,
beat the year mark.
yeah, that's true. Like in the sweet tea, technically they brew it in house. So it's a McDonald's product. It's a McDonald like their sweet tea is like their own little McDonald's sweet tea, and so that would technically be getting one of their like original items. It's not like you walk in there and buy like a water bottle. So
You're
if we're
not
playing
wrong.
technicalities, I worked in law for a bit, so what I mean.
You're not wrong. Yeah, but with the Ahsoka thing, going back to like what you're saying about like how people are like Star Wars fans are and how people are like online in general, like I thought I was thinking about it a lot, like just like how certain things appeal to certain Star Wars fans and not to others, and like you get like those Star Wars fans that are like just fans of like the originals and then kind of hate everything else. And like I kind of came to the conclusion that it's because like the newer fans dove in so deep through all the mythology, all the legends, all the books, like super deep, and have like this huge grasp and understanding of all these other things that like original fans like they didn't care like what the shit like the technical aspects of the ships and all this stuff and stuff with kyber crystals, like they didn't care about any of that stuff. It wasn't present like necessarily in the original trilogy. And so like I think that's the divide, is like, oh well, I know the real Star Wars and you guys only know like this other stuff. I
Yeah,
think that's it, to be honest.
yeah,
Like they didn't want to have their minds expanded, so
yeah. Or they just I don't know, just looking for a chance to be miserable. It's like
well, I
another thing
mean,
of like,
they don't really
there's got to be
they
something
don't
at the
really need
core
to
of it. It's gotta,
find a thing, like
I don't know. I feel like there's more to it than that, or maybe I'm just
Of
giving
course there is,
describing
yeah.
too much.
And we'll have a deeper
Like,
conversation about that next week, because I'm not going to say anything about Ahsoka other than I feel like if you are deep into the lore of like Clone Wars Rebels and you love Dave Filoni, you'll get a lot out of this. And if like you're a casual viewer, you probably won't.
okay, so it's very in the know. I see.
It's one of those things where like when you think of Dave Filoni and and you think of Ahsoka, the word that comes to mind is self indulgent.
Ah, got it.
So, but yeah,
Well, I mean, maybe I'll watch it. I don't know. Like I said, I'll probably be up till 2 o'clock in the morning playing Baldur's Gate 3 again. No shame. But we'll see, I'm definitely gonna watch it at some point. Maybe I'll watch it earlier than watch it again to remind myself. If I you know, am like mentally capable of pulling myself away from this damn game where I can do all this dumb bullshit.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
well,
see.
I was busy until like 9:30 ish last night, and then I was like, okay, I'll watch the first two episodes, and both of them are like almost an hour long. So like, and I wake up early, like 5 a.m. So I've been up all day, and like so like during like the first episode, like towards the end, I started falling asleep, and then like I like got up and started moving around to like keep myself awake, and then I started watching the second episode, and I almost fell asleep at the end of that one too, and it was like 11:30 then, and I was like, well, I'm going to bed, and I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. So yeah, it gets tough, but I wanted to watch them just in case like we ended up talking about it, so I did, but I'll probably rewatch them as well. Like I said, I didn't actually fall asleep. You know, I was just sleepy, so I might have missed a couple things, but I got the overarching everything else. So, but anyway, Blue Beetle, guys, Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetle.
We'll talk
What a
about
movie.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I appreciated the fact that it was its own movie. Like we didn't need any of the like Shazam 2, right? We got like cameos from Wonder Woman. You know, the Flash, of course, had Wonder Woman and Ben Affleck's Batman in it and stuff. And I feel like this movie did itself a great service by not having them in there, allowing it to be its own movie in its own universe,
Yep.
more or less. I mean, yeah, we know Batman exists in the universe. We know Superman exists in the universe, but we don't know who's Batman and Superman. You know, they're just mentioned by name.
Yep.
I appreciate all of the, you know, allusions to Ted Cord, the original Blue Beetle, a lot of the backstory there.
The show. Apparently, I didn't know there was a Blue Beetle show. I didn't know that existed. So like, no.
Was there?
Oh, I thought that's what it was like. Everything that was referenced to. There was like what, a show in the '60s or something like that. A short-lived one. Like I don't know. Google it real quick.
Honestly, I have no idea. The only times I've seen Blue Beetle in media is like in like Teen Titans cartoons, in Smallville. I think he was in something else similar to Smallville. I don't remember what, but maybe like Legends of Tomorrow.
There's one 20. Oh, yeah, here it is. The Blue Beetle.
The Blue. Really? When was that? What year?
2006.
Really? Ugh. It was probably
And there's
awful. Was it
and
Ted Cord?
the blue, and then the next one is called The Blue Beetle Ted Cord Returns.
Jesus, bro. Those early 2000s like superhero shows, aside from like Smallville, are mostly really bad. Like I don't know if you ever watched Birds of Prey, the TV show.
It's sorry, like the cast is so small. I wonder what it is. It's like probably just a really tiny movie or something.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there's even anything for that. But
Wow.
yeah, eh.
Yeah.
Eh.
Anyway, though, but you are right. Like all your points are right. Like it stands on its own as a movie. It has a lot of heart to it. There's a lot of genuine scenes. I think probably I don't know. We probably just give our impressions. People probably a lot of people have probably seen the movie. They've listened to this thing, or probably maybe haven't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
Quick synopsis
just in case,
is that
we'll give a spoiler alert, spoiler warning.
yeah.
But
We'll just go over the movie like just the whole movie like from start to finish probably, and then give our quick takes. So I think the movie starts with them like the kid. What's his name again? The kid, the guy who
Jaime.
plays Rubio. Jaime. That's what Jaime.
Well, it starts with like with the introduction of the villain, right? With
Yeah.
you know, they find the scarab essentially. We get introduced to Victoria Cord, who is the sister of Ted Cord. Ted Cord is missing. And then we meet the villain, pretty much just, you know, machine man guy.
Evil guy.
Yeah, and then you kind of go through the credits with all the backstory a little bit in between there.
Yep.
And then we meet Jaime Reyes, who is the main character. He is the guy who will become Blue Beetle.
Just graduated from Gotham Law.
Yeah, he just graduated college, and you know,
came back. and he can't get it. So he just comes back. He visits his family. Can't get a job. So he gets a job with his sister, like cleaning houses, like and like there's a lot of heartwarming like scenes in the backstory building. You meet the George Lopez character, who's like the techie kind of guy in this film.
Yeah, Rudy.
Um,
He's like a.
yeah,
They take a lot of like like white people stereotypes and like turn them on their head and like
yeah,
turn like the like which is more interesting, right? Like it's easy to stereotype, Hispanic people or any race of people and then just like
yeah,
play out those stereotypes in a movie because it's funny. But like
yeah,
taking like the classic like trailer trash white dude who's like tinkering with shit while on meth in his basement and like
yeah.
whatever and making it like a Hispanic guy, it makes it more funny, because it's like most white people can be like, oh yeah, I got an uncle like that.
No, I think you'd be surprised. There's a lot of guys. There are a lot of Hispanic dudes that live in their garages tinkering on stuff, and the government's listening to them. You'd be
Right, right,
surprised.
right.
So with that being said, though, I think that it was really good casting because George Lopez just has kind of this wild, manic energy, and I think it matches very well.
Yeah,
George, so I think like that was good casting, and like he's a really entertaining character throughout the movie.
and
You meet his sister, who she's
I've never been a
okay.
big George Lopez fan, but I thought he was a major highlight of the film.
Yeah, he's pretty good in this film. You meet his sister. I don't really like her very. She's pretty like random. Like so his sister, his mom, and his grandma are just there. I think that's like the thing. Like they're kind of background characters. Like sometimes they do some things, but they're usually just kind of there, like telling him like, oh, like my son or my brother or my grandson. Half the time, like they're not really like
Well, I feel
critical.
like especially like well his I don't yeah the mom I will agree, but the sister and the grandma I think are there to be like that until like they're like, aha, look at me, I am now kicking ass.
Yeah. Uh, anyway, but what happens is that Rudy can't get a job, so he works with his sister cleaning rich people's houses, and there's a lot of rich people angst in this film. It's kind of right, it's whatever. It's a really easy, low hanging fruit to get out these days.
Whereas it's the
And
whole gentrification thing, right? Like you have
yeah,
you have very poor areas, and then people with money move into those areas and kick all the poor people out. And
yeah,
there's like this huge juxtaposition where you see like all these like poor like rundown houses and stuff, and like the poor people who live there, and then like right on the edge is like the water, and then just like skylines of like billion-dollar
skyscrapers. Well,
industries and lights and like beauty and just excess and everything else. And it's like that's a big like like that's a big thing, and like it exists here but not as prominent. Like it's not like here's the border between the rich and the poor is right there. Like it's not as prominent, but I mean
yeah.
maybe it is in some areas.
Well, in some areas, yeah. In some cities, it's really obvious. Like, especially like in some parts of Mexico, you'll see stuff like that in Mexico City, where you have like a big in Brazil, like the favela and stuff like that, right into
Oh
the big
yeah,
business
but
districts
this
and
takes
stuff.
place in America.
Texas, yeah, or something like that. I don't know. The DC map seems really weird, and it seems like they always shift it to suit their needs. Like, I'm talking like just in general for like DC, like when they make up like random cities.
Well, yeah, they do make up random cities that like are supposed to exist in our world but don't, and like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't really struggle much. I'm not really breaking my mind too much over the location like some people are. Like I don't really give a shit. Um,
Oh yeah, but it is in America
it's a cool,
technically.
yeah, it's a cool
It's
looking
important
city.
to
It's in
understand.
the DC USA, which is always like a weird one too. Like which is generic military USA projection. So it's really funny.
Right.
So anyway, like there's a bunch of stuff that happens. They get fired from that. They almost get fired from that cleaning job because like the daughter of Ted Ford or whatever his name was,
Yeah. So well, there's other stuff like in the build up, right? Like his dad is
yeah.
like he can't work anymore. His dad's always been like the sole provider, and he
Yeah.
can't work
Well, I wanted to
anymore.
like just take all the stuff like with his dad and put that aside and say this thing we could just talk
Okay. Yeah.
about like on
Yeah.
its own. Like it
Yeah.
really is like that's probably like one of the better parts of the movie to be honest. Like all the
Yes.
interactions with the father, like are just that guy who plays the dad like just nails it
It's
perfectly.
phenomenal, yeah, and
Yeah, like
it's also like the very common story of being an immigrant and being like the first in your family to graduate college. That's Jaime. He's the
yeah,
first, and and it's like And they try to play the spin with like with the marketing. They're like, oh, he's the first superhero in his family instead of like the first college graduate thing. But
Yeah, it was pretty
anyway,
funny, pretty funny.
yeah. So they're
So what happens is he gets fired, and the daughter's like, "Hey, come back to the important big building tomorrow, and I'll give you like a real job instead of cleaning houses," because she feels bad because she was getting basically like she was harassing the Sigourney Weaver. That's Sigourney Weaver, right? That's who that is. She
Susan
is
Sarandon.
Cindy Sarandon. Okay, yeah, yeah, but the same. So so they're her like she's like the villain, not nice lady in this movie, and she's getting into a fight with the daughter. The daughter, and then Jaime steps in, and Jaime's like, "Hey, we should cut this off. Like, I gotta defend people because I'm nice, because I'm the hero." Just I don't know. The first 20 minutes, like I gotta. This movie could have been fantastic, but like I think that the first 40 minutes is like probably the weakest part of the movie because like they do a lot of leaps and jumps and stuff like that. And it all could have just been easier. Say he graduated and he got a job at this important company, and then he I don't know why they just didn't do that. I don't know why they just did this whole house cleaning dumb bullshit. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
I thought
not.
that.
I'm not like I get it,
Mm-hmm.
and I agree. Parts of it seem like a waste of time within the story as well.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like they're like, well, how do we get him to meet Jenny, and then how do we get him to get the Scarab, and like
Yeah.
from
But the thing to me is they had the perfect setup for that because he's recently graduated. Do you think he could have gotten like a job at that building and it would have been like that would have been such a more easier like sell path like him, you
Yeah, I
know?
think they wanted to show the reality of like there's like the American dream isn't real anymore, where like you go to college and you get a great job right away. Like it doesn't really happen that way. I mean, like
Not he didn't have to be working a great job at the building, but he could have been like an intern or like a paralegal when he has like a law degree, which is sometimes what happens.
yeah,
That's saying like there are easier ways they could have done that. I just thought them cleaning that specific house in that specific moment and him standing up
yeah,
to them
yeah. Well, and
I don't
then
know
all the stuff at the beginning, the foundational kind of like getting Jaime from place to place to where he needs to be to become the Blue Beetle, is
it's really
all very contrived.
yeah.
Like
Let's leave it at that. You're right.
like
But then he gets
it
the Blue
works
Beetle
in the
because
function of a story, but it
yeah.
make it's like, everything is coincidence after coincidence after coincidence, and like eventually you're just like, okay, like would he
This is boring. Like it is typical. It's like okay, let's skip to the good part. That's what the movie feels like. It felt like that. Okay,
yeah,
skip to the part where he has like the beetle and he can just fly around and that happens eventually. So what happens is that like he's just getting into the building and he's like waiting around at the entryway for to meet with the important what's her name
Jenny,
the love Jenny
Jennifer,
like
Jennifer.
the perfect solution love interest that solves all problems and is also super rich and also has a heart of gold. So, so she, Jennifer's like running out and shoves a box of like it's French fries, right, or whatever.
No, so Jenny, right? Like
So he breaks in, she steals the Blue Beetle because they have, and she doesn't want them to have it because they're uploading it to some like AI combat system, right? So
yeah, they're
she
making
takes it.
weapons, right? And she doesn't.
Yeah,
Ted's
she doesn't
whole
want
thing
them
was
there.
to use science to help progress and make the world a better place. And then
Yeah.
Victoria, his sister, who got the company when he went missing, is
Oh,
like,
I thought it was his daughter.
no, Victoria is his sister who's running the company. Jenny is his daughter who
Oh,
is against her aunt.
okay, got it. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so but either way, so she steals the Blue Beetle, puts it in like a burger box, and like puts the burger box in Jaime's hands, like when she meets him in the lobby because they don't know who he is, and so he's able to walk out with like anyone harassing him, and he just looks like he has food in his hand, and then she gets like arrested and all that stuff, and they're like under house arrest, and guards. No, the building starts to get locked down. And then, Ted, Jaime runs out, and then she runs in back like she's gonna try and catch the thief or whatever. So yeah, that's what's going on. And then they get back, and then the Blue Beetle like chooses him, and then like the movie really
yeah.
starts.
That's also something that like I don't know. It doesn't necessarily make sense. Like I get it. Like maybe it's a cultural thing where like when your family's like egging you on, like you like succumb or whatever when they like open it, like like whatever,
Yeah,
like and like he's like all right, whatever, like but like dude, if I'm Jaime and some hot girl gives me some box and says protect this with your life and don't open it, bro, I'm not opening it because
didn't they steal it from him and open it though, and like look inside it? That's what happened. Is that they stole it from him and started throwing it around, and then like
uh
one of them opened it.
well Oh yeah, but then he did grab it.
Yeah,
He
he did
grabbed the
grab it. And he's like,
scooter.
oh,
He
what?
was like,
Well, the cat's already out of the metaphorical bag, so might as well just
yeah,
go ahead and do an investigation check as in Baldur's Gate 3 if we were playing that right now, which I might want to be because I'm scratching myself so hard. I'm just kidding.
maybe. But this is where
Definitely
everything
not an
picks
addiction.
up, right? Like he
Yeah, so the
gets,
Blue Beetle chooses him. He gets a super suit and he starts flying around, and you get like a really funny sequence of like the suit like harassing.
yeah.
It
It's
does some pretty crazy stuff. It's a pretty interesting sequence. So like the Blue Beetle attaches himself to it, it climbs all over him, and then it embeds itself in his spinal cord essentially.
yeah
And
bones.
then he gets the body armor, and it looks really good. It does look really good. Like honestly, I feel like it's like a probably mix of a CGI and also a real suit. Is probably what's going on.
Well, it is a real suit, but then yeah, like
Okay.
obviously the abilities of it are all CGI, and I'm sure that they probably CGI'd around the eyes. I don't remember just seeing if the eyes moved or not, but
So the suit starts testing itself, and it's on all its little functionalities and stuff like that. And yeah, they she
yeah, he flies
land
around and does all this
he
shit,
flies around.
and
He goes into space. And then he crashes, and like he gets back with
yeah,
his family. He says, "I got it from
he
this
cuts a
chick."
bus in half, and
You know, he gets back to his family. He says, "I got her from this chick. Let's go find her." He gets in with the crazy uncle. They go looking for her.
yeah, they
Um,
find her near Cord Industries still. She's just like
yeah,
still there.
and she's being hunted, and then we get the first appearance of like that guy like in his super armor, right? That's when this happens.
Yeah, yeah, and with the whatever tech weapon
Yeah.
systems that Cord
And Jaime starts
Industries
learning how
uses.
to fight, and he's doing like non-lethal combat, typical DC hero stuff, unlike like the ones we got like Black Widow, people of fucking time, yeah, like the Marvel heroes, killing people 24/7. So it's that's going on the entire time, and honestly, like that sequence, all that happens is like we just get the first kind of intense Blue Beetle fight, and he's using all the powers and all like the equipment and stuff like that. It's really cool, and he gets like so like the not nice ant lady that nobody likes has this like goon who's like a robot cyborg guy, and he has like robot arms and stuff like that. He also has like the experimental version of that like AI combat system that kind of like is like mimics the Blue Beetle. And when he uses it, it looks really cool. It's very industrial esque. Like also kind of looks really cyberpunky. It really reminds me of something from like Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah, and then they just have like a big battle, and it's like really
Wait, is that
entertaining to
is
watch.
maybe we're getting it confused? Is the first time that he picks up Jenny, right? Is he's it's just him, right? And he steals Rudy's truck. But the second
Oh,
time they go there to get the watch, right? And that's when the big fight happens.
yeah, that's probably you are right. Yeah, that's right. Now I remember he steals the truck and he goes and gets her, and then like don't they get shot at though?
Yeah, they get
Like as he's
shot at a
driving.
lot, but like they just like
Yeah,
drive away and like
escape.
escape or
Yeah.
whatever.
And then
And
he looks out and sees the truck and like, well, it's already shot, and I got a thing. And apparently, like, no, yeah, George Lopez's character has like a freaking EMP in his back pocket or something like that, um,
yeah,
or something to hack all the screens. And yeah, and then the big fight. Either way, there's a big fight.
yeah,
All leads up to a big fight, and then it comes, and they get the. It turns out like they think they escape, and then they go. The bad guys show up at the house, little evil henchmen and stuff like that. There's another big fight. Blue Beetle gets captured because they have this like mega claws, and that what they call it or something like that, the super
oh
claw.
well, they go to there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens before that, but like they go to the to Ted Cord's
I thought
house.
I thought they go to the house after they all get like harassed or something like that, and like
No, they go
what-
there first, and then
okay,
um
sorry, I
and
got confused.
yeah, they go there first, and then Victoria's like, well, hey, fuck this kid, go kill his family, and while he's
Mm.
there, like, then he ends up going home, and like his family's being harassed, and then then all that other stuff. Oh, and he almost kisses Jennifer, and like I gotta be honest, I'm not a big fan of that relationship. It kind of feels forced to me as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
same. Like the same as like yeah, dude, like it's weird because you want to like this movie because again we'll talk about the father stuff. But it also like it's weird how it can be such a generic superhero film at the same time, and then also like shatter every ceiling what we know of like superhero films and stuff like that. Or not
yeah,
shatter, but like just subvert. It just subverted expectations and made it like really it just yeah made it like that, and
right. Yeah, I
it
mean, it definitely it is like it just is a superhero origin film, like,
Yeah,
and
because it does feel like that relationship with that chick was very dumb and forced and bad. It didn't feel it felt really bad. It didn't feel right, like, and it felt
yeah,
like the most basic part of this movie. Whereas, like, again, like the relationship with the father was, like, awesome, it was fantastic.
right, yeah, and so he does, he ends up going home, and his like family's being like harassed by all these agents from Victoria Court and whatever, and then he kicks ass and he whatever, and his dad ends up having a heart attack,
Yeah.
which isn't the first time, which is why he couldn't, he had to,
Hold on,
not.
hold on, hold on a second. I want you. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Hold on.
Anyway, I'll recap this when Chair comes back. He's probably on an important call. He's probably talking to like some super secret agent who, found something of value, and he's like, "Yo, Chair, hey, I found this thing in this place. You gotta come out here, and you gotta help me." And
I'm
Chair
back. Sorry.
is like, "Yo, I'm busy. I can't do that right now."
What's going on?
I was just making up that, like, someone probably called you to go to a place and find a thing.
No, this is for food. Very important.
Oh, well, it wasn't as exciting, but food is kind of like treasure, and instead
Yeah,
of
it
you
is.
going there, it's going to come to you. I'm guessing. So yeah,
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming to me.
yeah, but yeah, his dad, right? Like, he had his own business or whatever, and also it's pretty much explicitly said, but maybe people missed it, so they might think it's implied. But it's pretty much explicitly said that, like, his parents aren't there legally.
Yep.
Like, because his Uncle Rudy mentions, like, oh, like, you have the scarab, and like the government's gonna come and they're gonna start asking questions and wanting documentation and stuff, which means, like, you know to know that you're a citizen, and they're not. So, um, but yeah, his dad, like many other immigrants who come to this country from Mexico or other countries, they come here, they work really hard, they work odd jobs, they do whatever they can to survive, working 16 to 20 hours a day, whatever they have to do just to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And then his dad ended up doing all that, right, and built his own business, and then had a heart attack, so he wasn't able to work anymore. There's like all this stress because they can't afford their home payments, but then they're like, well, maybe we don't have to. They're going to take the home, but we're probably going to get kicked out eventually anyway because of all this gentrification, and the home has a lot of meaning and whatever because they grew up there. And Jaime's had, like, earlier in the movie, Jaime had like a really great conversation with his dad, and his dad was kind of just like, yo, I don't know what's going on, I don't know where things are going, like, what's going to happen in the world or anything. All I know is what's important is what's happening right here, right now. Like this, like just being here with you, kind of stuff. Very heartwarming, and
Very good. Very
yeah,
touching. Great acting on both.
great
I remember.
delivery.
Yep.
And it's all in
And then his
Spanish as
dad.
well.
And
So
then. Yeah. Yeah. Very traditional. Yeah. And then the dad fucking dies.
yeah, he has a heart
Just
attack, probably because of the
he has a
stress
heart attack when
of being attacked by military
being
agents.
attacked by super villain henchmen. Maybe
Yeah,
was a little bit of a stressful situation watching someone point guns at three generations of your family at the same time. So yeah, he has a heart attack and he just fucking dies, bro.
yeah, which is very sad. It's very sad.
Very sad. Yeah, but
Um,
then then they're like, oh, we gotta rescue Jaime. So they all saddle up.
yeah,
And
then Jaime gets captured by the claw machine or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Because
The crawl, the soup crawl.
they want to use
Well, let me
him.
close my door. Let me close my door
Sorry,
really quick.
they want to use Jaime obviously because the suit is bonded with him, so they're gonna extract essentially the coding or whatever from the suit to put into the weapons, so that
Sorry about that.
they have those weapons or whatever. I'm just talking about the suit being used, the coding from the scarab to make the weapons, right?
Yeah.
So that's like their whole purpose, and then everybody's like, we got to go save them, and they have the cool Blue Beetle ship.
Ship, which is probably another highlight of the movie, is like a very unique ship design, cool looking, but also like in its own way, it's very like just comic booky, where it's kind
Yeah.
of silly.
Yep.
I think is a good way to put it, but it's also like heartwarming, like in that silliness, like like, oh, this is just a fantastical invention or whatever. It's kind of like that. I think is the best way to describe it for me, or at least the impression I have from it. Um, awesome looking ship. Funny way, like and they just fly up. What are they? They're playing like a song, which is really weird that they're playing. Well, I guess it's not too weird. Thrash metal is really big, like in South America and stuff like that. So never mind, I take that back. It was Judas Priest, right? They were playing, or was it Black Sabbath? I can't remember who they were
Oh,
playing
I don't remember.
for that fight sequence. Yeah, I think they were playing Judas Priest. So it was really entertaining to watch, and then so but what's going on with Jaime though is he's been kidnapped and they're downloading stuff to his, like they're downloading shit from the Blue Beetle to like upload to the AI robot army thing.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
one scientist gets really pissed off that,
Yeah, it's like a Hispanic scientist, and she keeps calling
yeah,
him Sanchez or whatever, and that's not
yeah,
his
he's
name.
misnaming him, and so he
And
sets him free. He sets
Jaime's
him
like,
free.
yo, dude, like you gotta help me, like my brother, come on. And the dude's like, I gotta do my job, sir, I'm sorry, but I gotta do this. And then
I
like,
gotta commit war crimes.
and then Victoria's like, hey, do this. And he's like, it looks like he's probably gonna die if we continue with this. She's like, ah, fuck it, kill him. And
Yeah,
then he's
kill his
like,
family.
yeah, kill him, kill his
And
family, kill everyone, fuck everybody, fuck it all. Uh,
yep, yep.
and
So he's
then
like, "Oh man, what am I doing?" And then he helps him escape. And then, but what's going on in the background though is also like with this the good Blue Beetle data that they were able to extract is getting downloaded to the Tin Man, like henchman guy
yeah,
who's super evil and stuff like that. And he
Carabast,
looks
that
really,
was his name.
yeah, Terabas. He looks really fucking badass though. I really like the guy's his armor. This looks so cyberpunky and cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So
And then
yeah,
you
it's
have your epic end battle kind of thing, and
he has a great sword. He has a two-handed sword, and it's like really super fucking badass. And they're like using it to fight, and like the Blue Beetle and him, and they're in sync. There's a really touching scene with him talking with his father. You can't tell if he's dead or like if he's dead
oh
or if he's
yeah,
alive.
it's
It's good
it's
stuff.
it's one of those waiting room potentially dying kind of thing. Like if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, spoiler alert, right when Rocket like sees Lila again, like and she's like, oh, it's not your time yet, like you got to go back. It's similar to that, right? Like it's like, yo, you're either gonna like, to me that's the moment, like if you equate it to real life where like you're choosing whether to fight to survive or if you're just ready to let go. And like I like that's where Jaime is, and in that kind of purgatory thing, like he sees his dad, and his dad's like, again, he's like, yo, it's not your time, like you're gonna do some great shit and like go fucking do it, yo.
Yep.
um,
And he does. He uses his swords to make an even bigger sword, and he does a bunch of cool spinny shit, and it looks super badass. The missiles are flying. There's explosions. It turns out the grandma was some kind of guerrilla fighter back in her youth, and she knows how to use heavy machine guns and
yeah,
like operate explosives, which is pretty fun to watch. Like I don't know. I thought that was kind of I don't know. Like
yeah,
I found her character super interesting, but I thought like maybe there was like some backstory from the Blue Beetle comic book that maybe like his grandma was someone important, but I don't know. Like you said, they're probably going their own way with it. Because I know
yeah,
sometimes comic books influences and family is super important. Like your direct family, immediate family in the comic books is always seems to be super important.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
depending on the comic book, right? But yeah, I mean, it. When she said like, I've dealt with imperialists before or something or whatever, like,
yeah,
it's like I feel like it's referencing real life events, like real world events, and not comic book events.
yeah,
But I mean, a lot of people in our world are fleeing countries like Mexico or other Central American countries because of you know uh, because of corrupt governments, corrupt organizations, or you know
yeah. And also, there's another thing too. Like what this country did in South America was like really fucked up. And between like between the '60s and the '70s and '80s, like they did a lot of really really brash, very unhinged, like,
I mean, that's
just
the nature of the
yeah,
history of most countries in the world, though, right? And like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, what what the United States did to Hawaii was fucked up. Hey, now it's
Yeah,
one of us, guys. It's one of us.
yeah. Now their island is burnt to the ground. We can't even like send them like a couple. They sent like everyone on the island $600. I read or something like that. I was like, wow, great, what a good amount of money to help them rebuild their fuck.
Well,
I'm
I
sure they
mean,
got
no
fire
amount of
insurance
money
or whatever.
would suffice in those instances, right? Like,
Yeah,
it,
no, but it helps. It helps. Like money doesn't help, but it does help also. So
yeah,
there's things like that, and
yeah. Oh, and also, sorry to say this, but fucking Hawaii's governor is a fucking dumb fuck. Anyway,
We probably don't need to get into that. They've got enough people offering commentary on what's going on over there. It's a horrible tragedy. Probably over, I think, over 1,000 people. It turned there's still over 1,000 people missing. So I'm starting to think that the death toll is going to rise very dramatically, and that's why, it's gonna, but it's gonna be a real. I think maybe considered to be probably one of the worst natural disasters in American history. We'll see.
Yeah. Yep. But anyway, Blue Beetle, guys. Yeah.
Blue Beetle.
There's this epic battle that's really, really well done.
Yep.
And then
and
they kind of try to make you think Rudy died, but everybody knew Rudy didn't die.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. When that blaster shot, I didn't for a second think, oh, he's dead. I thought, oh, he's fine. I don't know if anybody else thought that, but I thought for sure there's no way he actually died. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, great battle, and then at the end, Jaime takes control of the suit to make sure that Carabas doesn't get killed, right? Because he saw his history, right? There's some connection or link or whatever.
Yeah, they had some link or something like that, and he felt bad, and it was a big sad, and that's why Locke was so important to him and all that stuff. And
yeah, and then he's like, he doesn't kill him, and then Carabas is like, don't worry, I'll take care of her, and he just fucks up Victoria. He's like, he doesn't. I mean, he essentially he kills her, but we don't see him kill her. We just know he's going to kill her, right?
Yeah.
And he says something about because one of her lines to him was like, oh, we have to make sacrifices for the greater good. So then he uses it against her and whatever. Oh, ha ha ha, got her.
Yeah, and self destructs into the fire and flames and stuff like that.
And then they live happily ever after.
Yeah, literally, that's what happens. It's the most atypical. He literally flies off with the girl, the super rich, heart of gold girl of his dreams, into the sky, and
their house burned down. We forgot that part. Their house burned down, and so
all
their neighbors are coming out to help them.
The community comes together and stuff like that.
Yeah, and which is cool. And and then Jenny shows up on her motorcycle, and she's like, and then Jaime's like, hey, we should make out, and then they do, and then he's like, oh, we're gonna go back to whatever, and he's like, hey, I'll just fly you in my cool suit, and she's like, okay, and then the movie ends, and then there's a mid-credit scene, and Ted Kord is alive, and everybody's supposed to be shocked by that, but I don't know why. I mean, we knew he was just missing, not dead, so yeah, he's out there, and hopefully we'll see him in the future. But yeah, that's the whole movie, and it was very enjoyable. Yes, there are some story issues. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know. People can say whatever they want about the story. To be honest, we talked about it already, but overall, it's just a nice, fun movie, heartwarming. I don't know. It was better than The Flash. Sorry, Flash. It was.
Way better.
And yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's one of the better DCEU movies.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate for its box office. I heard it's suffering right now with 46 million. But what's their budget? Do you know? 100 million, 120? It's just something stupid like that.
Honestly, it's probably a lot, but I don't actually know. My guess would be 150, but I'll look it up.
Really? Hopefully you'll bleed. Yeah, just something we talked about before. I'm worried that it's suffering because the DCEU has such a shit show about just everything being back and forth being so awful.
104 million. It's not bad.
That it's suffering, from its failures, where people are not going to go see these movies because they know how bad the DC movies are.
Yeah, but honestly, I mean, with a $100 million budget, it only needs to make 300 mil to be considered a success, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if it'll get there, but I mean, we'll see. I think it has a better chance of being a success than Aquaman 2, which has a $200 million budget, and I don't know. I don't think it's looking good for that movie, but people really like the first one. It made over $1 billion. I mean, this one has a controversy of Amber Heard still, and people not caring because the DCEU is ending anyway, and all that other stuff. So it could be a one of their worst flops. I mean, The Flash already was pretty bad as far as being a flop, but yeah, it could be worse. It could be worse. Yeah. I mean, Justice League also, the first Justice League. That movie barely made anything, man. It made like 400 million or something. Like, it didn't do well at all for a movie of that size. So
Yeah. First Justice League was a huge mistake, honestly. Like, in its like intention, like they didn't have a movie for each of the heroes involved, which to me like immediately broke it compared to the Avengers. Like, it's just what happens. The only character we didn't have a story on was the Hulk, I think, right? And Black Widow, but Black Widow was still kind of a side character, and she wasn't like a main.
but we had. I mean, right, we did have a Hulk movie. It's a different Hulk,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, we did. I mean, Edward Norton's Hulk is part of the MCU, and I think canonically it's the same character, but it's a different actor. We saw Black Widow heavily in Iron Man 2. We saw Hawkeye not heavily, but we did see him for a little bit of screen time in Thor. So like we had all these characters just like very well established already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even the villain, right, Loki, like from Thor, we obviously had Thor. We had Captain America. He had his own movie. Iron Man had 2 movies at that point. And Nick Fury had been all over the MCU doing his thing. Phil Coulson, like everybody was already established in the MCU for the most part. But Justice League, right? It was just the Trinity, and then like they used that movie. Well, the Flash had like 2 minutes of screen time, maybe, but not even in BVS, and it wasn't even. Yeah, it was like the future version of the character. And I mean, Aquaman came out after. Wonder Woman came out after she was introduced in BVS. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. Why did they rush that shit, man?
What a wild ride. No doubt about that. And it sucks again. Like, boy, this is another thing. Earlier in the podcast, we talked about things you bring up all the time. And this one thing we bring up all the time. Dude, it sucks because like I grew up like nobody knew who Marvel was until the first, like you said, the first Iron Man movie, and people knew who Marvel was, but like people didn't like like not like the MCU is now like one of the most successful entertainment franchises of all time, right behind Pokemon.
Just put it this way, right? Like when I was a kid reading comic books growing up, none of my friends would say their favorite superhero was Iron Man. But today, people would say that.
Yeah. So. And like for me, like I grew up with the DC. Like I think a lot of kids in America, like they grew up in like that 2000, the 99 to 2007 sweet spot of like animation, where there was a lot of animation that was very intense. Like for the stories were a lot more intense. I think they should have been for kid shows, but we don't need to talk about that. With Justice League Unlimited and Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series to a much lesser extent. But all the Justice League stuff was really, really good. It was really fantastic stuff. So it just really sucks that they're not able to make that jump when Marvel, all their stuff on TV sucked. Like it looked like it was all made for children.
Okay, some of it, but not the earlier stuff. Not the Amazing Spider-Man, or not Spider-Man, right? The 90s cartoon Spider-Man.
Friends?
No, not Spidey and Friends. There's there's a really good Spider-Man cartoon and a very good X-Men, right? X-Men 92.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the X-Men cartoon I remember watching growing up as a kid.
Yeah, like the shows in those veins were really good, but then later on, like there was a lot of not as good shows. There were other odd standouts. I mean, Spectacular Spider-Man is a huge call out, and a lot of people liked Wolverine and the X-Men as well. Like things like that, and then X-Men Evolution was also very good. But again, like these are the we're talking about Spider-Man and X-Men, characters that Marvel didn't have access to for a long, long time, right? Spider-Man not until 2016. Well, I mean the movie came out in 2017, right? So, and then the X-Men they just now got. We don't even have them in movies yet, aside from Patrick Stewart was in Doctor Strange, but. So, but anyway, we grew up with Justice League of America and Batman the Animated Series and
Justice League Unlimited
DC animation,
Justice League Unlimited was something special, man. Remember that first Justice League? I remember watching that episode when the Martians were invading Earth and everything like that, and they had to team up, and it was just fantastic. It was really good. It was really, really good stuff.
Yeah, and so that's why it's like very unfortunate. They're stumbling
so hard, and You think it might? You say it won't happen, but I think eventually, at some point, that eventually these movies may go away. If James Gunn doesn't pull like a rabbit out of his ass, like I could foresee them canceling the entire slate and falling back to a much more reduced, maybe direct to streaming way. But I don't see them making these big movies if their box offices keep like slumping and they barely make their budget back. They make these movies to make a shitload of money. Let's make a little bit of money back.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's possible, and obviously superhero fatigue is
is
becoming
a
more
thing.
prevalent.
Yeah.
And it's just because like it, it used to not be a problem how like people used to say, right, like even like in the peak of the MCU, people would say, oh, is this cookie cutter formula, like whatever, that's just rinse and repeat. But it wasn't really at that time. Like at that time, like sure, some of the jokes were like overplayed or whatever, but like there was still so much new happening in the movies and like turning things on its head a little bit, and like it kept things interesting, and it kept you invested in the story and where it was going. But now it's almost the opposite, where like yeah, everything does kind of just feel the same.
Yeah, the origin story. Like I think that's the thing of Blue Beetle. Like the first 40 minutes are just it just screamed to me superhero fatigue. Because it's like the same shit we've always seen. There's the family they care about. There's the rundown neighborhood that they're trying to project, and then it just upscales and upscales and upscales. There's the heart of gold. There's the love interest. There's the this. There's the that. Like they're
Yeah,
like checking all these boxes, and I think that's fundamentally because those things are fundamentally baked into superhero stories. I just don't think they'll ever be able to go away from that. Like the
right.
origin
And
story, like
it's not that like
Even Punisher has like the in some ways follows like cookie cutter origin story like things where like his wife was killed by gangs or whatever, and now he's like just wants to fucking murder people and he's like a marine or whatever, stuff like that.
yeah.
And
Well, I mean, with Blue Beetle, like, it's not to say like the first like whatever like the superhero like origin story part of it wasn't interesting or wasn't good. It's just like you kind of feel like I've been here before so many times, and it's like
yeah,
you're waiting
exactly.
for something to happen.
And I feel
And
like that is like what the fatigue is. Like that's the fatigue manifesting. That's what I think.
this is like, well, I've already said, right. I love Blue Beetle. I thought it was a great movie, but
Yeah.
like when I say I'm waiting for something to happen, it reminds me of seeing 2015's Fantastic Four, that reboot.
Hmm.
I remember going to that movie and sitting through it and thinking the whole time, I'm just waiting for something to happen, and
Yeah.
nothing ever fucking happened. The movie did nothing. It accomplished nothing. That's why it's such a renowned awful failure of a film, is because like it had this great cast and Michael B. Jordan and Miles Teller and Kate Mara and all this shit, a great cast, and it just did nothing. It didn't do anything. Nothing happened in the whole movie, and
Yeah.
like that's what you run into with like superhero fatigue, is like things need to happen, and you can't just wait till the third act for them to happen. You need to like actively be doing things throughout the movie to keep people engaged and make it something new and interesting, and not just like the same thing we've seen 35 fucking times.
Yeah.
So
And
um
the problem is for that is just I really don't know if superhero. I think that these things are fundamental core parts of superhero stories, and I just don't think they'll be able to get away from them. Like I don't think they can, or else it wouldn't be a superhero film anymore. It'd be like an anti-hero film or something like that. So
I think there are ways. I just think that nobody wants to be creative enough to think of them.
well, that's
Like,
definitely true.
yeah,
There's definitely dearth of creativity right now.
it is worth noting, because I did see some headlines about this, that there's concern that if Blue Beetle does poorly, that the interest in Latino-led films in the industry will go away. Like I've seen people say, like if Blue Beetle doesn't do well at the box office, we won't see primarily Latino films in the future. And I can't speak on that. I don't know if I can say whether that's true or not. Other than all I can say is with my knowledge of how business works, that businesses are stupid sometimes, and they want to make money, and they will look at that and say it didn't make money because of the people in it and the people who made it.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Like again, there's anybody who understands how numbers or statistics work in general understands the need for what there's a lot of confounding variables when you don't do any experimentation, right? Like you just don't know what the actual cause is. You can find correlations between things, but you don't know the cause, and you're gonna make poor decisions based on numbers with no context, which is bad.
Yeah.
And so I can see that being a possibility. I hope it's not true. And I think anybody who's seen the movie, for the most part, has enjoyed it. So, hopefully the people at DC and I think James Gunn and Peter Safran probably know this already. Like, understand that the failure of the box office, if it does fail, has nothing to do with how Latino the film is, and has everything to do with superhero fatigue, with it being a part of the old guard, with
DC fatigue. DC fatigue is another thing. Like just people not wanting to see DC movies because Black Adam was bad and because The Flash was bad, and they don't want to go see it. They just don't want to do it again. I think that's another thing.
And the message has been out there since James Gunn got hired that these movies mean nothing, so why should anybody see them? That message has been out there for a long time. And again, we talked to. We bring these things up over and over. Movies are expensive. People are broke. Inflation, the economy. Like, people aren't going to see movies right now unless they have to, unless they really, unless you can sell them on it. And when your whole pitch is, well, the movie isn't going to be a part of the future, but the character will be. People don't care about that anymore. All they hear is, hey, James Gunn, his universe is going to start in 2025, and everything up until then doesn't matter. That's what people hear. And so, it's difficult to get people to cross that line. It still made, 30 million or whatever in its opening weekend. It can still make money. It's only been out for less than a week now, so we'll see what happens. Again, Elemental, all the press was it's dog shit, and all the there's no money, nobody's going to see it, and now it's past arguably one of the best movies of the year. So.
Wow, we said we were going to struggle to meet time this week, and now we're 5 minutes over. We could probably talk a little bit longer. But I don't want to because it's my birthday week, and I want to go be lazy and smoke video games.
All good. Thanks, everybody. We're gonna head out. We're gonna eat some food because we're hungry. We don't live together. He's gonna eat, and I'm gonna eat, separately.
Yep.
But yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Wherever you are on, podcasts, listening, Twitch, YouTube, viewing, wherever you listen, watch. Much love. We appreciate you guys. You can follow, like, subscribe, rate, review, do all those things, and we'll see you next week when we talk about Ahsoka. Goodbye.